Hello everyone, my name's Cliff and welcome to my channel. This is Cliff's Dark Gems. Today I've got an excellent selection of young adult horror that can also be read and enjoyed by adults as well. There is one selection, there is one book in this selection that is not strictly horror, but it still has very dark themes, bloody themes, so it is on this list. Please stay tuned and enjoy. Okay, this book list is in no particular order, with the exception of books number 4 to number 1, two of my favourite authors, and those books are spectacular, so stay tuned for number 4 to number 1, most definitely. Okay, first of all everyone, I'm going to mention an author that I have mentioned before on this channel, and that is Roald Dahl. Now he's got so many wonderful short story collections for both young adults and for adults, such as Tales of the Unexpected and, wait for it, More Tales of the Unexpected, and these books are filled with horror, humour, charm, magic and fantasy, and really I cannot recommend them enough for young adults. You know, Roald Dahl's got this wit and this charm and this just ability to tell a short story so incredibly well, and I recommend them for all young adults and adults. Okay, in 9th position we have The Book of Lost Things by Connolly. Now I did give a review about this book before, and I did say in that review that this book is not for YA readers. Now I've given a little bit of thought, and even though this book is dark, it is bloody, it is incredibly violent, I still think that maybe if you're 15 or 16 and you're mature enough as a reader, you'll be able to handle this book. As I mentioned before, it is a fairy tale retellings, in that basically this boy finds himself in the wood, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and all these grotesque characters that are twisted, and it is perverse and it is disgusting and it is bloody and it is violent. So a younger child, 10, 12, this is nightmare fuel, don't give it to them. But an older teen, yeah, perhaps it'll be okay. So that is The Book of Lost Things by Connolly. Now the next book is not necessarily horror. Well, it is not classified as horror. It is science fiction, dystopia, but it is very disturbing and it is very dark. And that is The Knife of Letting Go by Ness. Now you may have heard of the movie was a complete flop. If you have seen the movie or heard of the movie, put it out of your mind. It has nothing on this book. This book is deep, it is magic, it is dark, it is complex, and I don't think there's any movie that can actually bring the story to life. You need to read the book. I want you to imagine living in a world, first of all there's no woman. Living in a world with men where everybody can hear everybody else's thoughts and feelings and inner thoughts. There is no escape. It is just this one crazy noise. It is distracting, it is loud, it is never ending, and you can imagine it can also be very embarrassing, because these adults might be thinking their deepest, darkest secrets, and nothing is safe, nothing is sacred. And that is the world we find ourselves in this novel. Then we have a boy, Todd, who's 1 month shy of his 13th birthday, where in this society he's going to become a man. And he finds himself on the run with his dog, Manchi. Now Manchi can also talk with the thoughts, and you hear Manchi, pretty much the only thing he says is squirrel, squirrel, and poo, poo. Todd finds this young girl who's completely silent. She does not emit any noise, she does not speak, she doesn't give her name, and they end up being on the run together from these men from the village that are pursuing them. And he finds out so much about himself during the course of his novel, and he finds out that most of what he has grown up to believe is lies, And this book is terrifying. This book is dark. At times it is bloody, it is vicious, and there are just so many intricate themes running through the story as Todd continues to run and find out about himself and found out about his place in the world. This is highly recommended. I actually taught this in high school, and I think everyone, young adults and adults alike, should enjoy this book, Knife of Never Letting Go. In addition to this, it is also part of a series. So if you find yourself loving this book, read the series. Keep on reading through to the end. Next we have Cirque by Darren Shan. Now, I don't think this is the best book for adults. I think this is mainly aimed at younger children, although you may differ, you may enjoy it if you give it a try. But it is not, I didn't find it particularly well written. It's kind of shallow, but it is still an original take on a vampire tale. The story goes that we have Darren Shan, and yes, that is the name of the author. He is the character in the story. And his mate Stevie, who's a bit of a bad apple, a bit of a bad seed, and they score some tickets to a one-night only showing of Cirque du Freak, which, as the name aptly describes, is a late-night show with an assortment of grotesque freaks and side shows, and there's this jumping spider, dancing spider, it's well-trained spider, and there's a wolfman who's not a werewolf, he's half wolf, half man. And so, yeah, it's full of grotesqueries, it's full of all sorts of weird and wonderful things in the show. When the show finishes, two things happen that are essential to the outcome of the story. Number one, Darren's buddy Stephen, who is, as I say, a little bit of a bad apple, notices that one of the performers in the show is actually a vampire. And because he's unhappy with his lot in life, he decides to approach the vampire and he wants to be turned. The vampire, however, refuses. Now, saying that, Darren, who is in love with spiders, falls in love with this dancing spider of this vampire, which is highly venomous, and decides to steal it, as boys do. And he takes the spider, and from that moment on, the lives of those boys and their families are changed forever, and not for the good. This book is gory. It's kind of twisted, and some people would say maybe it's not suitable for very young viewers, but it's fun gory, not in a terrible way, and I think younger children will enjoy it, or maybe young teens will enjoy it. Okay everyone, what we got next is absolutely awesome supernatural horror stroke thriller stroke action adventure. And the reason I read this book and the reason I'm presenting this book is, as a teacher, one of my students one day actually ran up to me with this book and said, "Sir, you have to read this book." And that is Raven's Gate by Anthony Horowitz. Now this book is just very, very special. It's also part of a series, and even though the series was a little bit up and down for me, I really think that an adult would enjoy this book as well. With a little bit of an open mind, there's supernatural elements, there's all sorts of stuff going on, and it really does get a lot bigger than this book as the series moves on. Okay, this revolves at the beginning of the story around a boy called Matt. Now Matt gets in trouble with the police, and he has a choice. He gets some jail time, or he has to go onto a program where he has to spend some time in a village with a guardian. He chooses a village, obviously, and this guardian, he soon notices there's something very wrong with her, and there's something very, very wrong with the village. Now, he happens to be quite special. He has abilities, or an ability, and more and more things start going wrong, and he notices stuff, and then he starts having these dreams, and one thing leads to another, and Matt's life will never be the same again. The story just is a thrill ride. It is terrifying at times, and it just brings in the supernatural devil worshippers, all sorts of different themes. But I don't want to actually spoil it for you, so I want you to jump into this novel and discover yourself. Raven's Gate by Anthony Horowitz. Excellent YA novel. Okay, next we have a strange little story that I actually considered leaving off this list. I'll tell you why in a minute. This is Sunshine by Robert McKinley. It is a vampire story, and I haven't read it for a long time, and I heard someone say that it is a vampire romance. Now, I don't mind vampire horror, such as Dracula, but vampire romance, I don't go there. So I had to do a little bit more digging, and I had to find out whether I really wanted to present this as a must-read for YA viewers. Look, I mean, a lot of YA viewers actually enjoy supernatural romance, so this might be for you. But from what I remember when I read the story, there is no romance. This is not a Twilight book. The vampire in this book, who captures this woman, the 20-something woman called Sunshine, is not a kind of beautiful, hairy-chested, exquisite-looking male vampire. He is disgusting, he's nasty, he smells, so he's anything but a perfect romantic partner. I do remember that the two of them share a very intimate bond, not a sexual bond, but that is more to do with survival than anything else. And I think that I remember this being a gripping, moving, powerful story, and it is a lot more intricate and has a lot more going for it than just a simple plot suggests. There's a history of a vampire war, there's a history of demons and vampires, and there's a lot going for it from what I remember, and I would give it a go. And even if you're not into romance, I would go in with an open mind. This is not your typical vampire romance. Okay, that is Sunshine by Robert McKinley. Clive Barker is a visionary. He's not just the author of the Books of Blood and some very, very dark horror novels. He's also a painter, he's a filmmaker, and in this case he has written a children's story, a YA story, that is truly beautiful and exceptional and scary. And that is Abarat by Clive Barker. Now, I no longer have the hard copy of this, I don't have the book anymore, and that really, really irritates me because this is just one of my favorite. So I'm going to have to track it down, but as you can see up there, the illustrations and the drawings, and he does everything himself, are just so imaginative and so out of this world, as is the story. Now, this story is about a young girl called Candy Quakenbush, who lives in Chicken Town. Now, this Chicken Town is the most boring place in the whole world. It's just chickens, and she wants to get away, and she soon manages to get away. This wave takes her to this other world. Now, this other world is an archipelago. I hope I've mentioned that correctly. It's a series of islands. Now, every single island represents an hour on a clock, the time of the day. So at 3 o'clock, you've got this island that she visits, and it's got these dragons. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or it's got these exquisite, just these incredibly detailed and imaginative creatures that only you could think up. And then, of course, at 12 o'clock you've got midnight, where there's danger, where there's horror, where there's terror. And there is a character called Christopher Carrion. Now, how's that for a surname? Carrion, as in rotting flesh. And now, one criticism people might have of this novel is that it doesn't seem to have a driving plot, but once again, it's part of a series. So he sets the tone. Clive Barker cleverly sets the tone, introduces you to the characters, introduces you to the world, and in the second part and the third part the story takes off. We do understand that this carrion creature, who is the leader of Midnight Island, is up to no good, but it's only in the second and the third book that you actually start to see the story take place. Now, Clive Barker is a genius. I absolutely adore his work, and I'm going to put up there and hopefully I have been putting up there a couple of pictures, drawings, illustrations from this novel, and he's done everything himself. I just think it blows my mind how imaginative he is as a writer, as a painter, as an artist. Okay, next we have another Clive Barker YA horror, and I've purposely put this at number 3 because at number 2 I'm going to put a story that has a very similar life lesson to this one. Now this is Clive Barker, The Thief of Always. Once again, he does all his own illustrations. I've got the graphic novel. I used to have the novel, and that really is a point of concern for me. I need to sort that out. I need to get these 2 books. But it is beautifully illustrated, even his graphic novels and the pictures, and it's got such an imagination. Okay, this novel deals with a 10-year-old boy, Harvey, who is just bored. He's bored of his life, he's bored of his parents, he's bored of school, he's bored of the weather outside, he's just bored. And he wants change. And one night, a strange man flies up to his window and offers him something that sounds quite fun and unique and different. Just come down to my holiday house and you will see. So Harvey takes up the man's offer, goes down to the holiday house, and he moves in, and there are 4 seasons in one day. So you get to live Christmas every day, you get to live Halloween every day. So things seem absolutely perfect. Now, as Harvey soon finds out at a later stage, everything is not as it seems, and there is a price to pay for all the stuff that we choose and the things that we choose. And Harvey finds this out the hard way. Now that brings us to an author that I have not yet discussed on my channel, but who is definitely in my top 3 or 4 or 5 authors of all time, and that is Neil Gaiman, and this is Coraline. And remember how you pronounce her name. It is not Caroline, it is Coraline. Now, this book is very similar to the last book that we spoke about because they both give a life lesson. Sometimes it's a better thing to be satisfied with who you are, where you are, and to live in the present, and to appreciate the things around you, appreciate your family, and to make the most of what you've got. That is a lesson the last book teaches, and that is a lesson that comes out loud and clear in this book as well. Now this book, I think out of all the books that I've mentioned so far, this book it was made into a movie, and I think this is one of few books where I think the movie is a lot better than the book. The movie is just absolutely gorgeous, and it's just so spectacularly done, and there are some differences which I will discuss later. But anyway, Coraline is also bored. She's moved with her family to this house, and her parents are too busy for her, and she has to explore this house, and she doesn't know what to do with herself. And then she finds a little tunnel, a little room, a little thing that can be unlocked, and she goes into this other world, this sort of parallel world where it's her house, but it's not, it's better, where she finds other mother and father who are also better. And this garden, spectacular garden, everything about this house seems perfect. And this mother and father, the other mother and father, have little buttons in their eyes, and they want Coraline to stay with them forever and ever. Now, in the movie version, Coraline falls for this. At first of all, she really goes with this. This one new parents, wow, and this garden is just fantastic. Oh, you have to see the movie, it is spectacular. But in the book, she's a little more skeptical. She's actually kind of knows what's happening right from the beginning. She realizes something's wrong, and she's not buying it. Also in the book, Coraline is actually a little bit more polite, whereas in the movie she's made out to be quite feisty, bordering on disrespectful. And but in both cases, one of the main themes of the story is to be very, very brave. And it's not about the fact that you're not fearful about the things that you face. You can be afraid, but you face your fears and that courage takes over. And this is a gorgeous story. I'm not going to say anything more about it. Chances are most of you have seen the movie, but give the book a chance as well. I gave it 5 stars. I think a lot of people who have seen the movie might read the book and go, I'll rather just watch the movie. But give it a go. Coraline by Neil Gaiman. Okay, my final book, which is also Neil Gaiman, and I would love to see this book as a movie before I even present this book. This would be a good movie in the right hands. And I know there have been talks about a movie being made by Disney. I know that the same people that did Coraline eventually dumped this movie for whatever reason, but I really hope that this movie gets made. And that is Neil Gaiman, The Graveyard Book. Now this is a very, very original imaginative tale as well. First of all, right at the beginning of the story, no warning at all, we have a triple homicide. Now this toddler's entire family is killed right at the beginning of the story, off the bat. And this toddler, now this has to be a little bit of suspension of disbelief, people, because I don't really see this happening in real life. You know, this toddler is quite a busy toddler, so finds himself, he can climb over things and move around quite easily. He's not even aware that his family is being killed, and he goes outside, he crawls up the road, and he winds up next to a cemetery. And the killer knows that there's a loose end, needs to kill this toddler. We don't know the kid named Jack, we don't know the motives of the killer yet, but comes after him. And kindly enough, the ghosts of the cemetery take him in, hide him, make him one of their own. And in the story, he is raised a nobody, and he is a nobody, and it's a nobody Thomas. No, nobody Thomas, I was correct the first time. And he is raised by these ghosts, and he's protected, his main protector is a vampire, who will go out for food for him, and so on. But he learns in the course of this novel the magic and the secrets of these ghosts. And he has these incredible adventures where he goes places where he shouldn't go. And it is just a magical, magical book. And towards the end, you have to realize the whole time as well that there's a very real threat out there that is still hunting him. And he is going to need all of his resources, perhaps, to survive. But this is a magical book by an author with an incredible imagination. I mean, a lot of his horror, a lot of his more adult novels I read as well. But this is fantastic. I think I read this in about a day and a half. About 300 pages. Beautiful. Okay, so there we go everyone. That is my pick for some quality young adult horror that we can all enjoy. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Did I leave out maybe 1 or 2 titles that I should look out for? I don't generally read a lot of YA horror, but if there's something special out there, I'll definitely pick it up. Please like and subscribe, and let me know what you thought about this video. Until next time, keep those pages turning. Cheers.